And welcome into another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm Kieran Steckley. With me, as always, is a man who is thankful that it is not his job to determine which teenagers are worth a multi-million-dollar investment. It's Cody Stavenhagen. How you doing?
Hey, doing good, Kieran. Thank you. And that's probably, I think international scouting is the hardest job in baseball for a few reasons. Number one, you're living sometimes in strange places, traveling uh, through different countries, scouting 13, 14-year-olds, knowing 90% of the players you are scouting or even the ones you sign are not going to pan out. But it's an annual tradition. We are recording this on the evening of the international signing date. We have the latest class, and of course, people are a little bit excited. And you know what? Maybe for good reason this year. The Tigers signed Cris Rodriguez, an outfielder from the Dominican Republic. He gets the highest bonus for an international amateur in franchise history, just shy of $3.2 million. And he's the highest ranked international amateur, at least in the past decade, if not entire franchise history. Pretty talented player, getting a lot of play on social media. Again, he's 16, so we're probably going to mostly temper expectations here. But that said, it's a sign of the Tigers being, I think, more aggressive on the international market. They've followed this kid for years. He developed into a real talent, and today he signs along with several other players from Latin America.
So yeah, like a couple things are true here. Like obviously the profile looks awesome. Like that's not breaking news here. It's ironic actually that his name, Cris Rodriguez, there's no H in his name, but his hit tool is a thing that people are getting most excited about. Thank you very much. I'll be here all week. I'm not going to try to sit here and try to analyze showcase swings or, different level swings from a 16-year-old. He obviously looks like he's a good looking athlete. He has a good looking swing for a Twitter video, so I'll give him credit for that. And obviously the people whose job, at least internal and sometimes external reputation is on the line says, yeah, this guy's worth north of $3.1 million. So you take all of that into account. Not going to be probably hearing a whole lot about him for a while, and that's okay. At the same time, I read these like markups on it's not just him, but like all these other ones, and it's like, he's hit at every level. And my first thought is like, well, he's 16. I mean, I can't say that there's probably that many remarkable levels there, but give him credit for doing what he's supposed to do to put himself in this position. And if you want an indication of how serious the Tigers were, good old boy Scott Harris, friend of the podcast, went down and was there for the signing, which it speaks to how much they are excited about him. And also we heard from was it Rob Metzler about him as well, and he highlighted they didn't follow him for years. They said that they like the makeup of the kid as well, which is cliche, but also at the same time, like, you better like the makeup of the kid if you're going to give him that kind of money. He comes up a little bit short of Christian Santana's bonus. What was that, 2.9?
No, he passed Santana's bonus.
I meant to say it the other way. It was like Santana, he went up just a hair above is what I meant to say. So thank you for correcting me on that. So yeah, like you said, the highest, Santana's a guy that like we're still kind of waiting for, some sort of pop. So that's just an example of, these things, take time. We talk about player development, the major league level not being linear. Now we're talking about teenagers. It's not necessarily going to be linear. But again, all industry experts agree this is one of the top players available. They were able to get him. Listeners can remember, and we'll talk about this instance here in a second. Listeners will remember that the Tigers made clear at winter meetings to you and your media brethren that they weren't going to sabotage their pre-arranged agreements or negotiations with the likes of Cris Rodriguez and some others for the sake of trying to get Roki Sasaki, right? So this was a guy that you can very clearly see they were very committed to, and it's not just throwing money at him. They were invested in him in multiple ways, and so that is at least worth noting. And also, I think a good sign. I would call it a bad organizational look to develop these relationships overseas and then kind of go back. We saw that with some organizations, kind of go back on them when, when like a Roki Sasaki comes up. So I do think it is worth giving credit to the organization there. I do feel like they kind of handled this all, I think, the right way.
Yeah, in terms of what to expect from Cris Rodriguez, hard to say. Again, I'm going to reiterate he's 16, and I think I've learned from being once really excited about Christian Santana that you just never know. Santana is a sub 200 hitter in his minor league career, even though he walks like crazy. Um, but I have heard Scott Harris in the past talk about Cris Rodriguez with a little bit of a twinkle in his eye, and Scott's a pretty realistic guy. I don't think he gets like that a lot, you know. So if Scott has some faith in him, I think that tells you something. But you said the hit tool with an H, and I think that's going to be the big deciding factor because I think the real tool is the power, the hit for power. He is 6'4" and 200 pounds at 16 years old, and he can hit the crap out of the ball. Great bat speed. Projects, the best version of him is a 30 plus homer, legit middle of the order bat guy. I think that's awesome. My mind does go to like, is being 6'4", 200 at 16 a good thing or a bad thing? So either you're going to get huge and end up being a DH, or like we probably all like went to high school with a kid who was that size at 15, 16, and then what usually happens? They stop growing and other people catch up to the physical tools and no longer are they a superstar. That's one of the problems with trying to project 16-year-olds. Their 16-year-old Jake Rogers was one of them. Like, if you just drafted and signed guys based on that age, like they probably would not be in the major leagues right now. So that's there. How good is the actual hit tool seems to be what the scouting reports out there kind of disagree on. The Tigers, Miguel Garcia, their director of Latin American operations, definitely thinks he can hit for contact, but it sounds like there's some early swing and miss concerns. The Twitter videos of his swing, man, looks pretty smooth. He's got this little A-Rod leg kick and finish that I love, but it sounds like in a game against real higher end velocity, the swing can get a little bit long. He's obviously only going to face better and better pitching, more legit breaking stuff, and more 95 plus velocity as he develops. So a lot to figure out there too. I don't think he's going to chase at the rate of like a Roberto Campos. But is the swing and miss going to keep him from like getting to that power in games? I think that's going to be the big thing to look for in the next 2-3 years as Cris Rodriguez rises up the ranks. The overall profile, like size, potential swing and miss, could represent a low floor. At the same time, the size, the raw power could represent a very high ceiling.
Yeah, you robbed me of my two talking points there. Number one was you just look at the swing, you say this definitely has the potential to be long. So I'm no swing doctor, but I feel like it does have the potential to be long. And then the scouting reports talk about the swing and miss stuff. Again, 16 years old, like that. If you hit for power as your number one tool and you're 16 years old, most likely you have some swing and miss as the backdrop there. I did want to say he was the number one outfield prospect among international prospects. So for that's worth, and the markup on MLB Pipeline, hit 50, 70 power, run 50, arm 60, field 45, overall is 60 grade. They project him to be in the corner, probably right field.
Can we stop saying he could stick in center field? Like, can we just? Everyone's saying like this guy's going to be huge. He's not going to stick in center field.
Yeah. They also
I guess he could be Aaron Judge, but I don't think he's Aaron Judge.
Well, no, yeah. They call him a carbon copy of Eloy Jimenez. So
not a center fielder.
Not a center fielder, as it turns out. So yeah, not to get ahead of ourselves a little bit too much there. Other signings, whereas I pull them up, a infielder from the Dominican Republic, Sterling Brazil, a Venezuelan catcher, Carlos Benavides, sorry. Dominican infielder Angel De Los Santos, Venezuelan left-handed pitcher Anderson Diaz, and an outfielder from Venezuela, easy name to remember in this division, Jose Ramirez. Speaking of Alex Rodriguez, the Rangers signed a 16-year-old Alex Rodriguez.
Love it.
So that's pretty cool. And also Hanley Ramirez, his son signed with the Rangers. So.
Hanley, that's such an interesting career. Go check out his baseball reference page. Some interesting numbers. Of these other guys, I think Jose Ramirez is the most interesting to me. The report from Miguel Garcia was kind of glowing. So he could hit, but he's got some speed. Talked about his tools. Said we think he can play center field in Comerica Park. So sounds like a tooled out guy, almost like a Parker Meadows, Max Clark type play style. Obviously, who knows, how good he ends up being. But that's a guy I'm going to be excited to keep an eye on. Just sounds like he's going to be a fun player with a exciting brand of baseball.
Yeah. So another thing we need to work on, need to see if we can get Oklahoma State to send some cleats to Cris Rodriguez to keep up the tradition of the high international signings having Oklahoma State cleats like
Didn't work
Santana.
out so well with Christian Santana. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe the Pokes got to back off here.
maybe. All right. Keep it with the international theme here for a second. We probably are on the cusp of a Sasaki deal agreement announcement here. Really any day now, actually. I think January 15th was the day put out there by the Ken Rosenthal's of the world as a possible announcement. They have reports that there's 3 teams involved, and I think we all kind of just accept reality that he's going to go to the Dodgers, and that's fine. Good for the Dodgers.
I don't know if I'd totally rule out the Padres. I don't know. Gonna be one of those two. Sorry, Blue Jays.
No, well, there you go. We'll see. Tigers, from what they have said publicly, made their initial pitch and then essentially were not chosen in the filtering out process by Roki's team. I think I'm a little disappointed by that. I kind of hope that they would have a pitch that would play a little bit more. We talked about in previous episodes, but that makes sense. There is another twist though, because we talk about the Tigers it's kind of put out there they need, or they desire, I should say, to kind of be a little bit more of have a little bit more of a footprint in the Asian market, if you would. And there's some scuttlebutt that maybe there's an opportunity, in theory, that they could. And you have written about this, Cody. Why don't you kind of inform us about that?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. First, just my take on Sasaki. I mean, this. He was never really in play for the Tigers. I think it was fun to believe that. I don't even know what we said at the time. For 5 hours after Joel Wolf talked at winter meetings, it was oh, okay. The Tigers kind of check out all these boxes that he laid out, most of which were BS. So after those 5 hours wore off of oh, they are a mid-market with good pitching development. It was dude, he's not coming to Detroit. So I think for the second off season in a row, probably the most overblown narrative is that the Tigers were going to be in on, the premier jet. Last year it was Yamamoto and even Imanaga, and this year was Sasaki, and the Tigers were not remotely close on any of those guys. That's just the reality. It's going to be hard for them, I think, as a Midwestern city. If a player can choose any 30 teams, the Tigers often are going to be eliminated just because of climate. Maybe that's not fair. I do we laid it out, the pitching development, young core, those give them credence. But clearly Sasaki and his camp never took it. They didn't take it seriously enough to even arrange a meeting. So when we're talking about the Tigers getting more aggressive, more of a footprint in Japan, I think it comes down to this. There's something happening nationally that hasn't gotten a lot of attention so far, but the Oakland Athletics, not Oakland, the Athletics of wherever.
Somewhere in California and maybe Nevada eventually.
Yeah, probably not. So they signed a 17, 18-year-old player named Shotaro Mori. He is a two-way player. Hits left, throws right, just like Shohei Ohtani. I'm not saying he's going to be Shohei Ohtani, but he's a pretty talented player. And he is probably the biggest Japanese prospect to ever skip the Nippon Professional Baseball League draft and sign professionally with an MLB club. So that breaks decades of precedent. This just isn't a thing that happens, largely because of reasons deeply ingrained in Japanese culture. You're supposed to go to the NPB draft. Ohtani considered skipping it, didn't. Sasaki considered skipping it, didn't. There have been some other guys who didn't play in PB largely because of varying circumstances. They weren't necessarily wanted in PB. there was another guy, Rentaro Sasaki, who signed with Stanford last year. Did not play in Japan. Signed with Stanford. May have been the top pick in the NPV draft. He instead chose to come to the States. So what's happening here is this pipeline is opening up. There, I think, going to be more Japanese amateurs coming straight to the U.S. Maybe Otani, Sasaki, Yamamoto type talents who will now be available as soon as their high school careers are done. And if the Tigers are looking to increase their presence in Japan and the Pacific Rim, this is probably what happens. I think smart teams are probably already on the cutting edge of this, and looking at these opportunities, building these connections, seeing these players. I think it is far more likely the Tigers could open up their pipeline that way than bidding massive amounts of dollars or just hoping a player like Sasaki signs. We'll probably go through this again next year with what's the hitter? There's a big Japanese hitter coming up, blanking on his name, played in the World Baseball Classic. He mashes. We'll probably go through this again, and I'm going to throw this out there right now. I bet he hasn't signed with the Tigers. But if the Tigers can start getting some guys, Japanese amateurs, that could be very interesting. Wrote a story about the Athletics and Shotaro Mori on the Athletic. Hope you guys will check it out.
Yeah, it's outside the box, although it's about to be inside the box. So here we are talking about it. It might become a little bit more of a mainstream idea. But I think if you are the Tigers, you do have to treat this as a unique opportunity and try to be at the front line of it. Because again, like you said, you're not really, you could say you're not actually physically, metaphorically, and literally getting in the room to acquire these players, right? So like this is the same opportunity that you have in Latin America potentially you could get in Asia. So like I'm all for like trying something new here, and again this would play into the whole like resources available thing that Scott Harris likes to say, like if should they try to like venture into this market. So I respect players that are going about it a different way too, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know, the Stanford, you know, way going to college. I think it'd be awesome if more of them did that because, you know, selfishly, because I'd like to watch them, you know, play in the United States at college ball and all that stuff. And then, you know, I'd like to see the Tigers be more aggressive there because again, you have to kind of play with the hand that you're dealt. All right. The weather is the weather in Michigan. Okay. And then the market size is the market size. We can all debate about the market size, but the bottom line is you're not the Yankees, you're not the Red Sox, you're not the Dodgers. So, like, you have to play around that, and that's what Oakland's doing. By the way, Oakland, Sacramento, Las Vegas, whatever, low key, kind of the most interesting offseason. We don't have to talk a lot about it, but they certainly have made more headlines, I think. Than
when you have to dodge an MLB PA grievance, you're forced to do some interesting things. The player is blinking on Munetaka Murakami. That's probably the next big Japanese free agent, corner infielder, left-handed hitter, a lot of power.
No, there you go. Wait, good job by producer Mac J to get on that. So I do, Cody, want to spend a couple minutes on it. Just a couple minutes, I promise. I had another Alex Bregman thought. It's not that original, but he's still available, so therefore the thoughts are still going to exist. There's talk now that the Cubs are in it, and Rosenthal, when he goes on foul territory or fair territory, his show here at the network, like I always kind of feel like he like frames it as if like the Sox are basically refusing to bid against themselves in the Bregman market. So that's my reading between the lines. And if Ken is saying that, then I'm assuming that it's damn near like perfect. So if I'm advising Alex Bregman and I got these various offers on the table and they're all, we'll call them in the same ballpark financially. Like I doubt there's going to be that kind of contract that is such an outlier. I kind of feel like, and this is my bias, sure, but tell me where I'm wrong here. I kind of feel like Detroit is like a better option in multiple ways than going to Boston. I went and looked this up. You know, you want to guess how many innings Alex Bregman in college, the minors, or Major League Baseball has played at second base?
I don't think he's played any.
He's played 32. The whole
30. Oh, more than I would have guessed. All right.
his entire adult life, basically, he has played 32 innings of second base. It's not a lot. Like, he is north of 30. All right, so it's not a lot. Number one. So number two, you come into this market thinking you're like one of the studs, right? And then you're going to sign somewhere that requires you to go to the other side of the diamond. It just also doesn't mesh all that much. Number three, you're going to go to the American League East. The American League is down. We all understand that. However, the division that is not down is the American League East, because you have the New York Yankees. They just went to the pennant. Yes, they lost Juan Soto, but they're not trying to backtrack. You have the Baltimore Orioles, who we would say is top 3 in terms of young talent across Major League Baseball.
Oh, absolutely. They might still be number one. They need to do some pitching or spend some money, but man, they still got some talent.
Yeah, and then you have the Blue Jays, who are more name than production. However, they still kind of seem like desperate to try to be competitive. Who knows what they might pull out of their butt to try to be like a contender, even though they should probably tear it down, as I think we've mentioned here once or twice. You go to the American League Central, you get a team that was in the playoffs last year. You get a division with really nobody's head and shoulders above everybody else, right? And you get to reunite with AJ, so that neutralizes the Alex Cora thing, assuming they have similar relationships. And you get to play your position. Now, yes, he does mash. You should go look at his numbers at Fenway. That is it is a lot. However, do you think Carlos Correa would have gone to play third, sign anywhere that was going to put him at third base anytime he was a free agent? Probably not. So, I just feel like we're not giving enough credit to, these things that Detroit can offer. With, again, I'm assuming financials. My dog agrees with me. I assume financials are relatively the same, and I just don't understand the appeal of going to Boston to play second base, is what I'm saying. When it's not like they're head and shoulders above the team in terms, if you're winning is what you value, and the financials are about the same, and you're going to get these same opt-outs anyway. Why would you just go play for another team that is about on the same plane as Boston? Is it as simple as the Green Monster? We talk about home field advantage all the time. You bring up all the time that's only half your games. So, we should apply the same logic here as well. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. You already mentioned the park factor, and I kind of keep coming back to that. If it were to ultimately be between Tigers and Red Sox, which I'm not sure it will, because if neither of these teams wants to step up and foot the bill, what that does is open the door for a team like the Cubs or someone else to swoop in on one of these shorter term deals. But let's say hypothetically, it's between Tigers and Red Sox. It's only 81 games, but Alex Bregman has a 1240 career OPS at Fenway Park. That's in 21 career games in Fenway. He hits 375. In Comerica, he has a 702 OPS. He hits 227. If I'm thinking, man, do I want to go to the Hall of Fame? Do I want to perform deep into my 30s? Wouldn't mind having half my games just bang some doubles off that Green Monster, as opposed to going to a tougher place to play in Comerica. The position change, look, I think that's a legit point. We've not really heard from Bregman specifically how he might feel about that. I think Boris said he would be open to it, but how does Bregman actually want to do that? I think that's a real question. But so is, I don't know, the Red Sox are a prestige brand. Fenway Park is a cathedral. They have things in their favor, and it's a park that suits him a lot more. I think if we were to end up talking similar money, that really could work against the Tigers.
Yeah, the Fenway thing, the prestige thing, is not something that I can counter. I'm just saying, but I just feel like these are things that are in the Tigers' advantage. I feel like aren't getting enough play, I guess, would be my main point. All right,
maybe you're right. If the Tigers wanted Bregman, they could probably have him.
They could probably
keep coming back to that one.
Yep. All right, let's the guys have to forgive me for the dogs barking in the background, doing the best I can here. I saw something on Twitter today, Cody, that made me excited. Even though I figured it probably wasn't all that legit, but still made me excited. Okay, there's one of those random like Twitter accounts that says that Ke'Bryan Hayes wants to be traded. Now, longtime listeners know I love me some Ke'Bryan Hayes. I love Ke'Bryan Hayes. Didn't necessarily have the greatest year last year, but if we're talking about third base upgrade options, and this guy is available, which even if he's like not requested a trade, he probably should be available given the production they got out of third base last season with him hurt. I think he played 90 games last year. I should have that in front of me.
96, yep.
And he's 96. Ke'Bryan Hayes could provide a little bit of balance in this lineup. Now, there's the right-handed factor. I understand that. But I'm talking about lineup balance and that this guy's an elite defender. Dude. This guy is an elite defender. In 4 seasons, I took out the 2020 season when he was a rookie and played 20-something games. So I took that out for this average. Defensive WAR. He averages 2.8 per year. If you take out this microcosm of a season of 2020. 2.8 per year. For perspective, Nolan Arenado, who Tigers have been connected to, I guess you could say, is a longer career, but 1.6 WAR per year. Defensive WAR, just defensive WAR. So we're on the same page here. Ke'Bryan Hayes has a contract that goes through 2032 with a club option. So we'll just throw that out for the sake of this. He's only making $7 million the next 3 years and then $8 million 2 years after that. That runs through 2029 and his age 32 season. Again, there's a club option there for his age 33 season for $12 million. So that's 5 years, $37 million, taking out the club option year. Whereas people are talking about getting Nolan for 3 for 52. Keep in mind, Gleyber Torres signed for 1 for 15. Now, again, it's a 1-year deal. Money doesn't matter, but you see the trend that we have in free agency with the deals that these guys are getting. If you can get close to league average offensive production out of Hayes, which I think is realistic, not a certainty, but I think realistic, and you continue to get elite defensive, that is a bargain, in my opinion. And he is a career .295 hitter against left-handed pitching. Torres is a career .271 hitter against left-handed pitching, for perspective, and the Tigers hit .230 last year against left-handed pitching. So, all that to say that you could get a guy with an elite skill set that if you believe in the hitters lab that they're trying to sell us on, and for certain some of these guys, that you could get closer to league average. If you believe in your sports medicine, make sure his back's okay. These are stuff that we obviously just don't have access to. But you get him healthy and you get him close to league average offensively, and you're paying him nothing. Now, it is a lot of years, but you're paying him nothing. And they already have a guy that's younger and cheaper that if they knew that this kid was going to do all right, they probably wouldn't have given Hayes this extension. All right. So, and it's also the Pirates. So I just feel like there's an opportunity here. So that's my point. There's an opportunity for Ke'Bryan Hayes. I think it should be at least thrown into the mix of possibilities if you're looking to upgrade your infield in 2025 and in this case beyond.
Yeah, I really wanted to hate on this idea because this report, and I say that with heavy quotation marks, came from an account called MLB Scoops that literally has ice cream in its profile picture. Said Randall Grichuk and the Pirates were close to a deal 7 days ago. Said Verlander and the Braves had something going on. So I don't think it's remotely legit. At least, we don't have reason to believe that. Twitter's out of control, man. We got to be more literate about these things. But it's he hits lefties well. Even last year, he hit lefties well. 2022 and 2023, he was a 4-win player on Baseball Reference each of those seasons. I wanted, until about 3 minutes ago, I was going to say, dude, Tigers don't need Ke'Bryan Hayes. Matt Vierling's going to be better than Ke'Bryan Hayes. I don't know that I see Matt Vierling having a 4-win season. That's a pretty high threshold to clear. How much does defense matter? I think the Tigers need impact bat more than they need defense, but right now there stands a chance that their infield defense is going to be pretty abysmal. So having a Gold Glove third baseman, man, that could be pretty nice. I think they should sign Alex Bregman, but if they don't get Bregman, I think I might like Hayes more than Arenado. Could be a little bit of an upside play. Could solidify your defense. You get a right-handed bat, and he doesn't have to carry the load of the franchise like he almost had to do in Pittsburgh. He'd be there to play defense, hopefully get league average offensive production. Probably could get him for cheap. I don't see this happening. Not sure it's in the realm of reality, but I really don't hate the idea.
I think you have to make a phone call about it, in my opinion, because again, they have a guy that younger, cheaper, and they got decent production out of. And if I was doing a deep dive, I was on their fan graphs, like depth chart. I was going all out. I felt like Charlie Day and Always Sunny in the mailroom. I was just like, a million tabs open, cross referencing this, So like, Pittsburgh's a hard team to figure out sometimes. I think we can all agree on that. So if I'm going to throw this out there, I have to give a hypothetical. So how would you feel about Brant Herter and Ryan Kreidler for Brian Hayes?
I'm not giving anybody Brant Herter, man. He's pretty good.
All right. Vieto and Peyton Graham.
Deal.
Because they have a atrocious bullpen. So I was looking at bullpen arms. Vieto would be their second best on WAR last season. So and then Peyton Graham's, still has a pedigree of a second round pick. The middle of the infield is getting kind of crowded, kind of quick for Detroit. So maybe Peyton, this might be one of the times where the prestige might still exist for Peyton Graham.
For about the millionth time this offseason, we would have to say it also largely depends how you feel about Jace Young. So I think you could quote unquote block Jace Young for Alex Bregman. Would you want to block him? I just don't think it's a block, but would you want to limit his at bats for Brian Hayes? I think that is a huge question, and one we still don't quite have a full indication from the Tigers, like how much they actually value Jace Young, but that would be something to consider.
Well, I'm looking at Jace Young as as of now, I'm looking at him more as a long-term second baseman than third baseman, like in this thought exercise. Because we still have no indication of his real role. And then again, like how the organization values him, I would be comfortable getting Hayes and then kind of figuring out something long-term with Young post Torres.
And they could still almost platoon at third. Vierling would still play plenty, but more as a fourth outfielder, more in probably the role he's best suited for.
Because long-term at second base now is a huge question. You like Lee, right? But again,
Lee, Young, McGonigal could all be options there. So you have some options.
You have some options, but McGonigal's obviously behind Lee as of now. So it's like this will raise your floor a little bit, especially defensively, and then becomes a huge bargain if he can get close to league average offensive production. He's a right-hander. Seems like a kid has got a good head on his shoulders. Has some bad injury luck there. By the way, if you want a more detailed on this, I recommend going to Jerry McInerney on Twitter. He broke this down. He's with me on Team Cabrian, so I don't want to take credit for all the number crunching that he did. So go find him on Twitter because he broke it down real well. There's reason for optimism. I think it would be a decent gamble. So that's just my 2 cents. I was a very excited, exhausting rabbit hole that I did this afternoon for Brian Hayes, but I think it could work. Just as Big B and Vieto, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I just hope this is the last time we reference MLB scoops on this podcast.
Very fair. Anything else, Cody, before we get out of here?
No, that's good. We will catch you guys here in a few days as we continue to follow what's next this offseason.
Want to remind everybody, as of recording this, we are within 10 subscribers of the 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. So please, if you haven't already, if you're listening, even if you don't do the YouTube thing all that often, it'd be a huge help for us if you could subscribe to us on YouTube as we continue to grow this podcast into what is going to be at very least an exciting and interesting Tigers season. So we got big plans, maybe some remotes, but we got to kind of grow in order to be able to accomplish those things. So if you haven't already, please subscribe on YouTube. I will say it again. Please subscribe on YouTube. And thank you to everybody who listens to us, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and follows us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran_Steckley, pod page at Tiger Territory_4. Cody Stavenhagen, I'm Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.